Somehow standing here, right here, brings me both immense comfort and that daunting feeling of dread and horror. The iconic music, the locals and their very memorable catchphrases, and the constant presence of the cathedral just being right up there.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
Tristram is where Diablo 1 all began 30 years ago this year. If that doesn't make you feel old, then I don't know what will. Not only is it incredibly deserving of a remake or remaster, but I would argue that it's the best Diablo game that exists. I'm probably wrong in saying that, and I know 98% of you will disagree with me, but it's my YouTube channel and I can do whatever I want, including dabbing. I'm gonna bring dabbing back to 2026. Okay, let's do it. I grew up playing Diablo 1 on the PlayStation 1, which is why the footage behind me is so grainy and pixelated and ugly. But to me, Diablo 1 on the PlayStation 1 is peak gaming. No installing, no PC issues, no getting distracted by slow loading pictures of topless models. Just put it in and play. And it also had couch co-op, if only I had a friend to play with. It also doesn't help that this copy of Diablo 1 is very expensive, but completely worth it. But that is where my journey with this franchise began and ended. I just never played another Diablo game again. That was until last year when I played Diablo 2 and 3 back to back. I'm still yet to play 4, so let me know in the comments if I should review it. I've heard bad things about it, so if you want me to play it, that means you probably hate me.
Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams?
Playing D2 was almost like a spiritual awakening. The game is incredible. It has so many mechanics that I wish the original had. It expanded on everything, the classes, the combat, the exploration, and the list goes on and on. And playing Diablo 3 straight after 2 was a weird experience. Now I was playing and sort of enjoying this very arcadey version of Diablo. And, you know, honestly, while the characters and the story was there, it felt like I was playing a completely different franchise. And what were they thinking killing off Deckard Cain? He's like the Gandalf of the Diablo franchise.
Stay a while and listen.
And now we have Diablo 4. I don't know why I said it like that. Which has a user score of 2.6 on Metacritic. Obviously, I'm not taking that score too seriously, but the only thing that game seems to have going for it is that it doesn't have any they-them characters.
Actually, Tosh uses them for themselves now.
They asked us to let folks know, so now you do.
But each one of these games, while amazing or good or average in their own right, felt like they were missing something that Diablo 1 had in abundance, and that was atmosphere.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
To me, Diablo 1 is a horror game through and through, and as the franchise has gone on, it feels like it's gone further and further away from that theme. I think they've tried to recapture some of that feeling by introducing us to this lady here, but I'm more attracted to her than anything else. I think I have a weird fetish now. The feeling of hopelessness and despair is immediately present when you start the game. We are an unknown warrior from a land far away. The backstory of this character has now been fleshed out more, but when the game first released, who we were was intentionally vague. It added to this sense of unfamiliarity to the story and location we were in. It also felt like we weren't even meant to be here. We were just a warrior, rogue, or sorcerer who had just heard whispers about the horrors happening in Tristram and decided to come see for themselves. And I love not being the chosen one or the person that's meant to rid this world from all evil. In games like Skyrim, we are the Dragonborn, and it feels low stakes, like no matter what happens, we're gonna win. And if you have played Diablo 1, well, you know how it ends. I vividly remember not understanding what this end scene meant when I was younger. We have just slain the namesake of this game. What do you mean we lost? Why would the warrior stab himself in the head? Well, he was manipulated by Diablo to do so. Diablo convinced him to do what it wanted, not what the warrior wanted. That and the gem was far too big to fit into his ass. It sort of reminds me of the Lord of the Rings, the one ring corrupting everyone that comes near it. And it's the same in Diablo. The townspeople are all traumatized by the events that have been unfolding, and the same thing slowly happens to us, even though we are the hero. Diablo 1 isn't a game about hope and saving everyone's life. The damage has already been done. The townsfolk are already miserable. And many of the Tristram citizens have already been killed or captured to become a slave. We are merely here not to save lives, but to figure out what is going on. And it doesn't take long to realize that we are about to see some serious shit. This dying man right here, he immediately sets the tone for what is about to unfold. With his last dying breath, he tells us of a demon named the Butcher. The Butcher, such a simple name, but infinitely horrifying. The Butcher. Surely this Butcher couldn't be that bad, right?
Big cleaver, killing all my friends. Couldn't stop him. Had to run away. Couldn't save them. Trapped in a room with so many bodies. So many friends. No!
Yeah, that's pretty horrifying. The Butcher that left this poor man in such a state that we don't even bother giving him one of our health potions to see if that'll cure his wounds. We just leave him. Hey, I'm actually still alive. If you could just take me to the healer, please. Come back. I'm sure I'll be fine. Before we have killed even a single enemy, the game has sent me on an adventure that would lead to many years of PTSD. I definitely should not have been playing this at the age of 10.
Fresh meat.
By today's standards, the town of Tristram is small and simple. We are so used to these big, epic cities in most of our RPGs. But this small town was all they needed to make one of the most atmospheric locations in all of video games. This town is the safe haven of this very scary location, reinforced by the fact that it never changes layout. It's the one constant, the one area you can always rely on to be safe, unlike inside the cathedral. One of the things that made Diablo 1 so mind-blowing was the procedurally generated dungeon levels. Meaning that every time you create a game, the layout of the levels will change. Very confusing to me the first few times I played it. While a boss fight like the Butcher will always appear on level 2, his position and what surrounds him will change. Quick shout out to whoever designed this room here, I still have nightmares about it. Not only does this provide an incredible amount of replayability, but it also adds to that constant feeling of uncertainty. It was probably intended to be more of a cool gameplay mechanic, but little did they know that it would become one of the reasons as to why Diablo 1 feels so intense. Will the stairs to the next level be right next to the last, or will I have to explore the whole level just to figure out where to go next?
The smell of death surrounds me.
There's only 16 floors to explore, and the further down you get, the less maintained and man-made it is. But what they all have in common is that feeling of dread. Dead bodies are hung up like decorations. There's hordes of enemies that will chase you relentlessly, and at any moment you could find a tome that reveals more about what's going on down here. 16 floors and not one bathroom. Very weird. Did Diablo destroy all the bathrooms? What does this mean?
I gotta pawn some of this stuff.
Diablo basically created the modern action RPG loot loop. Kill hordes of enemies, get randomized gear, grow stronger, and repeat. It's such a satisfying gameplay loop, and tons of franchises took that formula and made their very own successful games. Torchlight, Path of Exile, and Dungeon Siege, just to name a few. Diablo 1 might have been a very simple version of all those gameplay mechanics, but this is pretty much where it all began.
Your reign of pain has ended.
When you start the game, you get to choose between the warrior, the rogue, or the sorcerer, and if you've played RPGs before, I don't really need to explain the differences. But I'm going to anyway. The warrior, an expert with weapons, gets directly into the face of his enemies and strikes them down where they stand. This is a hammer. The rogue, a master with her bow, uses her speed and cunning to get distance from enemies and takes them down safely from a distance. This is Sharon, Ozzy Osbourne's wife. I don't know why I have a doll of her. It's available for purchase. The sorcerer, the most overpowered of the three, can cast spells that wreak havoc on anything that moves, but is very weak physically. I've played all three characters a few times each, and while the warrior is probably the most basic bitch of them all, he's the character I always gravitate towards to. I mean, he's sort of the main character after all.
The armories of hell are home to the warlord of blood. In his wake lay the mutilated bodies of thousands.
This is an RPG, and with that comes leveling your stats, but unfortunately I am RPG illiterate because I still just guess which stats I should be leveling up next. I can spend like 14 hours making one goddamn YouTube video, but I'll be damned. I'll be damned if I spend 5 minutes reading up on what stats do in any specific game. But luckily, leveling is easy. You only have 4 stats you have to choose from. XP, however, is finite in Diablo 1. Enemies do not respawn. This design choice was made to create a sense of accomplishment, but it also meant that you might get extremely unlucky and only find weapons suitable for other classes. I can't tell you how many goddamn bows I found in this playthrough. I was stuck with the same weapon for hours. Having a limit to how many enemies also means that you have way more incentive to explore the whole map. Every inch of every level could be hiding an enemy that will not only give you extremely valuable XP, but it also may just be holding your next main weapon or suit of armor. And oh my god, loot. I love loot. I love loot so much that I almost named my daughter Loot, because there's nothing more satisfying than when a special piece of equipment hits the floor. You see, that sounds like I hit my child and she hits the floor. I do not. I do not do that. But if you misbehave again... No. You see that blue or gold highlighted word pop up on your screen and rush back to town to have Deckard Cain identify it for you. It then has like a 10% chance of actually being a better weapon than what you currently have. Even on occasion being so bad that it's only worth a single gold piece when you try to sell it. That sound of a ring hitting the floor is one of the most satisfying sounds in all of gaming. The calculations you make in your mind when comparing which armor is better, and again, me being a clueless RPG gamer, probably picked the worst option every time. For an old game, there's a really solid amount of different armor and weapons you can find, and hundreds of different variants of those. Some weapons might steal health or mana, or have a knockback effect that knocks enemies backwards, giving you some much needed space. Armor can add resistances to certain types of magic, or help you recover from getting attacked faster. There is a ton of things you have to consider when swapping equipment around, and the best answer isn't always the most obvious. Just because this weapon is stronger, it doesn't mean it's better, especially if it's slower than a short sword or a dagger. It was also very common for my character to have the same helmet or shield for a large portion of the game. It meant that finding something to replace it felt way more rewarding. That was actually one of my pet peeves about Diablo 3, it felt like I was replacing my gear every 2 minutes. Getting rare items felt less like a rare occurrence and more of just a regular gameplay mechanic.
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
What will always surprise me the most about Diablo 1 is the amount of enemy types. Even to this day, many games struggle to have such a fun roster of baddies to fight. Each floor has a unique combination from the last, which helps keep things feeling fresh and adds a good degree of difficulty. They start off as simple skeletons and zombies, and by the end of the game, you are facing off against teleporting mages and goats. Lizard-like creatures shooting bolts of electricity at you. Demonic women wearing G-strings. Lots of demonic women wearing G-strings. The different types of enemies also require a surprising amount of strategy for a combat system that is essentially just one button. The G-string ladies will actively run away from you. While it's extremely frustrating, it changes up the gameplay dramatically compared to an enemy that charges you. The G-string ladies, while far weaker, will lure you into larger groups of enemies. Whereas you can lure more hostile enemies towards you and take them off. Do them off? Wait. You can take them out one by one. As your character gets stronger, so do the enemies. You can't just run into every room blindly. You will need to take your time, or you will find yourself easily overwhelmed. I died 2 or 3 times, and each time was because I was an impatient whore. I don't know what whores have to do with this, but you get my point. Each enemy type also has a unique boss type variant that is guaranteed to be far stronger and drop a rare item. I honestly just wish there was more of them. Diablo 1 on the PlayStation 1 may have had couch co-op, but that controller is definitely not the way you should be playing this game, especially if you play as the sorcerer. As a warrior or rogue, the controller does the job. Just mash the X button and occasionally press L1 to use a health potion. But managing your inventory, which is an addictive minigame in itself, is infinitely slower than just using a mouse. Please play Diablo 1 on the PC. The PS1 port is my preferred version because of the very powerful spell that is nostalgia. Overall, Diablo 1 may not be the most fun game in the franchise. It's definitely the most basic, and it's also a very short game. In fact, you could beat it in 1 or 2 sittings. But it is the most important of them all. And not only that, it's also the most horror-filled. I've already said this word a few times in this video, but when I think of Diablo 1, I think of unmatched atmosphere. Nothing has given me that sense of loneliness that I felt when playing Diablo 1, except for maybe being at Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1. If you have a spare 10 hours, then I fully suggest you go back to where this massive franchise all began 30 years ago. Alright, my name is Mythic Vic. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, please subscribe. Subscriptions, subscribers, please. Until next time, see ya.